So this is going to be a video about Google Forms settings. So when you've opened up a form, this is just an example that I have, you have a number of settings up here along the top. This first one is customizing, or the second one, I guess, is customizing the theme. So this is where basically you can choose a picture that goes at the top. You can choose a different color, and you can also choose a background and the font. So I think oftentimes it defaults to purple. If that's not your cup of tea, you can change to different colors as well as the background color. So if we change this to blue, all of a sudden we get these other blues that go in the background. So that's one of the first settings. This is a preview, so you can see what the form would look like for a student or whoever is viewing it. Here is the settings gear cog. This is one of the more important ones. So some of the settings that I typically suggest to people is to make sure it collects email addresses. This is so that instead of having the student or person type the name at the top, this automatically collects their email address. Typically, you won't have to worry about people trying to pretend to be somebody else, but it could happen. Also, it's just one less question for people to fill out. Require sign-in. When you're on campus and you're having students use school-issued Chromebooks, typically I have this set to restrict users to use just the TSC BOCES and its trusted organizations. This one should be good because the trusted organizations should include all of the component districts. So you can choose to whether you want to check that one on or off, is up to you. With a quiz or a formal assessment, typically you want to limit it to just one response so that the students only take the quiz once. Another option that usually gets checked is that you do not want them to be able to edit after submitting, because then they could look up the answers and then change their answers. So typically we do not have edit after submit unless you are being conscious of that and you want to be able to give them a second chance or whatever. And then see summary charts and text responses. That means that they can see how other people, kind of like how the class as a whole did. They won't see individual reports, but they would maybe be able to see how the class as a whole did. So that's the first tab. Second is presentation. This one's more limited. Show progress bar. If it's a really long assessment, then maybe you would want to hit those progress bar. Shuffle question order can be really handy if you are giving a quiz and you want to minimize the opportunity to cheat. So that one oftentimes I check. One thing about that progress bar, keep in mind that if you open up a Google form and you do a bunch of work and then you close out of that form, all of that work is lost. So keep that in mind. Don't use a Google form for really long assessments, mostly just quizzes. Last tab is quizzes. This is what makes a Google form turn into a quiz, is by clicking on this radio. This gives point values and also allows auto grading for multiple choice. Locked mode in Chromebooks. Again, I told you in a different video, this is so if you're giving a quiz on Chromebooks in class, you can click this and it will make it so once the student opens the quiz, they cannot open up any other tabs or windows to look up information. Release grade immediately after each submission. So that means that if a student does the quiz and it is auto graded, like multiple choice questions, then they can get their answers immediately after taking the quiz. Or you can choose later after manual review. So typically that would be that maybe you wanted to curve the class, the grades for that quiz. You could maybe throw away some of the questions that a lot of people got wrong, or however you want to do that, and then you could give them their score later. Either one is fine. Typically, I would probably do immediately after submission. And then you hit save. The last setting that is really important to know is actually in these three dots. It's under preferences. This is the default quiz point value. You could change this before you do each quiz, but it will stay saved from then on out until you change it again. So I would at least put a 1, because if you have a 0 and you have a quiz that gets auto-graded, there won't be any points assigned at the end. So I always make sure that there's at least a 1 there. But if you wanted to change it for a specific quiz, you could change it to 2. Just make sure you change it back if you want to have a different point value. And I always have collect email addresses as a default. Then we can hit save. And those are all of the settings that you really need to know for giving quizzes in Google Forms.